Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks podcast, and I think the subject around the importance of it, it's better to be the disruptor versus being the disruptee, has been well covered. But we still see companies such as Thomas Cook failing to adapt to a digital world and actually becoming the next blockbuster video. So this keeps me thinking, how can any business out there adapt? And how can your employees adapt? And how can a business leader help improve adaptability right across the board? Now, a company called AQ, or Adaptability Quotient, is the first ever holistic metric of adaptability in the workplace. And they measure adaptability across three core dimensions. So as the former IT guy, I get frustrated with shiny new tech projects and buzzwords, and understand that you can only improve what you can measure. So this one really interests me. So come and join me in Exeter in the UK so we can speak with Ross Thornley, co-founder of AQ. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Certainly. So it's Ross Thornley. It's really great to be here. I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. This is a number of business adventures down the line. I've had some wins, some failures. My background was in brand and marketing. I grew an agency for nearly 18 years and sold that in 2017. And I've been on an adventure now around innovation, understanding adaptability, and building some platforms and systems to help humanity make sure that no one's left behind. So that's what I do, what I'm up to, what I've been doing. And in the future, that commitment to our mission of leaving no one behind is really important. How that will show up, that's what adaptability is, right? We'll change and adapt our current solutions. As long as they provide value in the world, they'll still be our solutions. And in the future, there might be new ones because we uncover new data and new ways to solve that problem.
And it's so refreshing to hear that, because we're hearing everybody talking about new technology solutions and AI this, machine learning that, 5G that, but bringing everybody along for the ride and leaving nobody behind. That should be the biggest lesson that we've learned from back in the industrial age and that transformation, because that's the big thing that we need to solve, isn't it? Not leaving anyone behind.
I think it is a challenge, and it's what has motivated, myself and Mike to look at this more deeply. It came about through observing how innovation happens and change happens, or maybe how it doesn't happen. And it's not often a technological problem, and technology is accelerating so fast, it's converging in every discipline and area to create new solutions that we couldn't imagine. When you combine, as you said, these exponential technologies of AI, of robotics, with quantum computing, we bring not only new solutions, but entirely new business models together. And what we're facing now is a disconnect between how quickly humanity can adapt to that. And there's a great danger that used to be felt over a long period of time. It was over multiple generations. So I might have had a job for life if I lived a few decades ago. Whereas now my job tenure might be slightly less, but I might still have the same career, but just multiple different jobs or positions. We're entering a phase where we will have multiple careers and 3 or 4 different ways we show up in the world. And that will have, broad consequences of, yes, thriving, but also collapse of identities, companies, roles, all of these sorts of things. So how do we make sure we provide the systems and tools to help people navigate that pace of change is really important.
Now, AQ is the Adaptability Quotient, but to bring everyone up to speed, can you expand on exactly what that is and ultimately how it can help power humanity to adapt in this rapidly changing world and protect organizations from disruption?
Everyone loves another, acronym of all of these things, and we've had IQ, we've had EQ about emotional intelligence, and hey, here's another one of AQ, of Adaptability Quotient. And essentially, the way we look at it is, how do we transform the way people and organizations adapt to change? So if we take this understanding of adaptability as a word and how it shows up in social, in work, in all sorts of different places, it's to what extent are we adapting as individuals to our environment, and what is our environment adapting to us? And so what we've been looking at is a model to understand AQ, and we explored that through lots of research, lots of collaborations with, doctorates, behavioral scientists, different universities, different organizations, and we've come up with a model under the acronym of ACE, and it's adaptability, character, and environment. And so ability is, for example, how and to what degree do I adapt as an individual? So the sort of dimensions and things that we're measuring through an interesting interface, which I'll go into in a minute, but it's things like grit, our mental flexibility, our mindset, our resilience, our ability to unlearn, which is another one of these things, because we always talk about, I've got to keep learning new things. What often stops us adapting is old knowledge that we hold on to, and that we can't stop doing a certain process to make room for new. So then character are things for us to help to understand who adapts and why. So this might be our emotional range, our level of hope. What is our motivation style? So to help this person adapt or change, it might be, for example, I'm motivated to do that because I need a burning platform. It might be because it's communicated to me in a way that is about make this change and my future's secure. So it's a safety play that will accelerate my change or make it more frictionless in my character. Or it's, I play to win. Make this change and you're going to be promoted and you're going to have a brighter future. Yeah. And equally thinking styles. So there's all these character parts about who adapts and why. And what this isn't is a personality test of those pieces. And then environment is about when does somebody adapt and to what degree. So these are things, for example, like company support or team support or our emotional well-being or stress. All of these things either inhibit or accelerate our ability to adapt. So once we start to measure these things, we can then start to put interventions in place. And that's where it gets quite exciting because, and if you want to improve anything, you've got to measure it, right? If I want to change my weight, I need a set of scales to stand on. Then I start to learn about things like nutrition and exercise, and I can move the needle one way or another. Yeah. Neither is good or bad unless it's at the extreme, but it depends on my context. Do I want to be a top sumo wrestler or do I want to be an ultramarathon runner? So when you understand the environment and context that you're showing up, you can then do the interventions to achieve where the needle sits. So think of that in the same way of our adaptability. My level of grit, when does that show up? What kind of hope, what kind of team support? Depending on what my outcome is, that's the kind of things that we can do of our model. And lastly, just quickly, is once we're collecting this data, we can start to shift from a place of understanding and saying, oh, that happened because of this. We can then start to predict what will happen when. And so what we're doing is taking some of these technologies that might be displacing certain tasks and role and people and feeding it back to serve humans to help them. So we're starting to then look and take the AI, and we've got some really smart algorithms and machine learning to start to predict what the reskill index or what the change readiness of an individual or then a cohort as a team or as a whole organization, so that you can then put the support in place for where it's needed for certain pockets of your organization or team. You can have your innovation driven in certain ways that may be more experimental. I think that's a starting overview for people to get their heads around of what we mean by AQ.
So many great points there. And one of the phrases that they keep saying is one of the most dangerous phrases in business, of course, is, but we've always done it that way. but for anyone listening, the big question has to be, how can anybody listening discover their AQ scores? Can you walk me through that?
Yeah, certainly. So at the moment, we've been a few years in building the model, working with the scientists, getting some data. We did a beta launch last year where we had about 25 organizations go through, from the likes of, big ones that people know about, IBM, a few UN agencies, these big colossal things that adaptability is important, right? They've got lots of people, they've got a lot of reskilling to do. So that allowed us to learn, what did we do wrong? What do we get right? What do we need to improve? We've then been building all those updates as much as we can within the timescales. We are currently launching an early access, so people can go to aqai.io and have a look at what we're up to, what we're doing, and if they're interested, apply for one of the early access slots. which will allow them to discover the adaptability of their workforce, of their employees and their organizations, gets benchmark data, those types of things. But there's only limited time and space for this early access release. And then in the summer, we'll be releasing commercially. That's our plan. So that's where they go to discover it and start their journey to, be able to cope with uncertainty. That's what we're looking at here. Is the future we're facing is changing so quickly, and uncertainty is on the rise. How do we make sure that we can show up in a way that doesn't involve sharp objects and mental health and stress issues, and it allows us to thrive and ensure no one's left behind, right? Yeah.
And once anybody listening has gone online and they've got that score, they've got that baseline, how do they then move that needle and enhance that AQ score stage and actually obtain that competitive advantage that so many leaders out there are searching for? Yeah,
so I think adaptability, as you start with anything, you begin with, I'm intrigued, I gain an understanding, I become aware, and you then either bounce off of it and say, oh, no, it's not for me, or I really want to go deep in those things. So what we're doing in that measurement, it then will help you identify things like resilience, for example. That's an ability. I'm a bit low. How do I improve that? We're working to collate and curate content in from some of the world's leading experts on how to improve resilience, so that they will be able to take simple steps or very complex steps, depending on whether I just like to walk and I can't walk versus I want to run an ultra marathon in resilient sense. And resilience is the ability to bounce back from challenges quickly. And it's a key part of adapting. It also, in our data, has a direct impact on emotional stress, for example. So if we improve our resilience just by a small amount, we can then reduce our emotional stress and impact. So that can be a really interesting bit that equally impacts our overall adaptability. So there will be a case where you can buy books, go on resources. Our next phase of our business will be digitize online coaching on a personalized micro-learning basis. So what that means is you will be able to, at the moment you need it, get nudge behavioral bits through a conversational chatbot like your digital coach to be able to improve any of these dimensions. We're 2-3 years away really from a digital twin persona that's as good as a human being. Yeah. For some, that might sound like, well, flying cars should be here already, right? Now, it works towards that. So there'll be, I now know it, I go and read a book. I go and look at some online courses that are available, or they're inside our world. So as a startup, ed tech and HR business, we've got some elements of that, some early bits. Inside your dashboard report, you'll have a few little tips, but by no means at this stage are we a full comprehensive, go and get qualified and do all of these training courses to improve it. That's going to be coming later as we go on.
Fantastic. And we will have a lot of people listening on their own change and transformation initiatives. So how do you think measuring adaptability will actually help speed up the process in that?
It's a great question. And I think some people don't necessarily want to speed it up. They might just want to make it work, right? Yeah. They might be happy with my change process hitting the time that I wanted it to, rather than, I'd like to get it quicker. I just want it to work. Most change, digital transformation, all these things fail miserably to their main objectives. Would be even wonderful if they're successful and they're faster. Yeah. So I think some of the bits are just recognizing that a company has an immune system response to change. You mentioned a great quote of, well, we do it this way because that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
So what this sort of thing does is it gives you a data point that's independent to start to have a conversation as a transformation or as a change or whatever it is that you're going through to understand why. And then if these are the components of how you might get a change that's more frictionless, it could be a small change of, just as I said, the communication style. Recognizing, for example, in our benchmark report, how people are motivated to change does alter slightly according to the traditional hierarchies of role. So what we've noticed is the more senior in hierarchy, the more those types of people tend to be motivated by playing to win a game. Yeah. And the earlier in the career, And it's not necessarily by gender or age of those things. You can have somebody later on in years, but as new into that role. And they're motivated potentially by security. So if the change makers are thinking everyone's like themselves and they're saying, make this change because we're going to grow and we need to do all of these things, and the immune system comes up because they want to make a change because it makes them more secure. So a small little thing that shows the motivation style can speed up and make more, frictionless and efficient change happen, because you're talking to what will accelerate those individuals through it. So it will show up in a variety of ways. We've got just one quick example of one of the top 4 engineering firms in the US. They're using this for onboarding of new acquisitions. So every couple of months, they're onboarding another, 100, 200 staff organization, because that's how they're growing. And in that merger, you've got a whole group of people that have got to adapt to the new culture, the new processes. You might not have the resources to do and treat everybody equally. And some are going to need more support than others to unlearn a whole process. Oh, we've always done it this way, I don't want to do that. This will help highlight where to identify those resources, who might be able, there's somebody who copes with change well, there's somebody who isn't, let's buddy them up. Might never have thought they should be buddied up because they're in different departments or different areas, but they could encourage them because they've now got that data to see those types of things.
And what are your biggest challenges in getting businesses to recognise the importance of AQ, especially to today's successful employees? Because I'd imagine that is your biggest hurdle at the moment, is it, or biggest challenge?
Well, it's interesting, actually, in terms of it depends on your strategy of are you trying to educate somebody who doesn't already value adaptability to say this is why it's important and AQ matters? Or are we, where we're finding it is people who already are thinking adaptability is important and we need to do that, and then going, who in the world is credible and working on it and coming to us? And it's the latter that we're finding. A LinkedIn survey back in 2017, 2018 of, I think, around 50,000 recruitment people, what employers were looking for, top 5, number 1 was adaptability. Yeah, there was no way of measuring it. So we're saying, we want adaptable employees, whether you're Canada Goose's CEO, 6 billion organization in Canada. And he says, the number one thing I can guarantee is whatever you join the job doing today, in 18 months' time, you'll be doing something differently. So I look for an adaptable employee. Yeah. And they might instinctively have a few questions, few bits, but there's no tangible current way of measuring that. Dell came to us because they're putting 500 of their executive leadership team through an adaptability 2-year program. Knowing that they're facing such exponential changing times, it's a key pillar for them as an organization. So they're wanting to accurately measure it and put a whole program in play for it. So the market is at the moment coming to us because we're almost, in this blue ocean strategy, blue ocean area, we're pioneering this forefront of AQ, and the organizations that are already looking for it are finding us. So we're going for those easy spaces where it's companies that already value it, rather than us going to market and saying, you should be valuing this, and this is why. That's our current stage, right? And as we scale and try to cross the chasm from those early adopters that are coming inbound, we'll then maybe have to figure out the answer to the question you raised. How do we say, this is what you need when they think they want something else?
Absolutely. And I suspect that many people listening will have learned something new from our conversation today. But I'm curious, what are the helpful takeaways that you would like anyone listening to take away from today's conversation?
What I'd like them to think about and remember is change sometimes comes from inside. I want to make this change because an event has happened in my life. And you can be okay with that because you're doing it. If a change happens outside your life, an environmental change, a redundancy, a competitor comes along and, I'm feeling disrupted, that then might feel, am I now a victim of that? Or how might I thrive in it? For me, adaptability gives you the tools and assets to navigate that and choose, am I going to be disrupted or am I going to transform? in those types of situations. And this is not about what cards have you been dealt. You're adaptable or not, right? It's fixed or growth mindset, right? Yeah. No, this is, think of it as a muscle. So I want people, to feel confident that they can improve their adaptability. And I want them to feel that they should take this seriously. Our adaptability is, I believe, humanity's superpower, and it's what's going to help us navigate the decades ahead. And if you don't take it seriously, then the dark side might come quicker than you think. And that's what I want to avoid. I want to avoid people going to the sharp objects, and serious situations of their mental health and of a company's very existence, if they can look at how they prepare themselves for uncertainty. And that's what we're looking to do.
Cool. And before I let you go, is there anything else you can share about your plans for 2020? And equally, if you could point everyone in the direction of where to find you online and ask any questions if they have any after listening to us.
Yeah, today. Thank you. So the website is aqai.io. They can find out a whole load of information there. It was so new there wasn't even a wiki page about AQ, right? So we created the wiki. So they can have a look on Wikipedia for a bit more of the history behind it. And that's not just us. That's the term, measuring adaptability started in the military in the 70s. AQ, the term and phrase back in 2010 was first coined. And so, Google is a great place to start, if they're interested in it. Of course, I'm going to say, go to our site, and look at our platforms of those things. Our plans for 2020, we aren't going to achieve leaving no one behind by ourselves. We are going to be doing it through partnerships, collaborations, and for 2020, that is our biggest thing. Is identifying from all of these collaborations and partners from all around the world that are inbound. I'm traveling out to Phoenix next week after to Dubai, all different places where very credible, unique capability organizations that are aligned to us. There might be a distribution channel, they might be a content partner, it might be the world's largest coaching federation that are looking at how might they partner with us, because they're aware of just how critical adaptability is going to be in the future. We're a collaborative organization. That's what we're going to be doing in 2020, is growing by identifying collaboration based on our mindsets. So we have a series of mindsets that we hold really important to us. We're mission driven, and therefore that gives us flexibility of how we show up to solve it. So that's what we're going to be up to. And of course, as I say, launching our first AQ-Me assessment, which we'll be doing in the summer commercially.
Fantastic. Well, I think everybody listening has heard about digital transformation strategies, dealing with technological change and how they adapt. But like you said, you can only improve what you can measure. And for those reasons alone, AQ sounds fascinating to me. I'm really interested where you're going to take this. So I'd love to stay in touch with you, get you back on the podcast later this year. But more than anything, best of luck for 2020. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Take care. Bye-bye.
It makes perfect sense to me as the ex-IT guy how measuring adaptability naturally speeds up change and transformation initiatives. And I love the line on their website, AQ, that says, to the exponential leaders, the pioneers, the game changers, here's to the ones who see the world differently. They're the ones who are brave, ambitious and experimental. While some might see disruption and risk, they see hope. So I love the mindset that they've got there, but I especially love that Ross made a big point of highlighting at the very beginning that the most important thing is that everybody comes along for the ride and that we leave nobody behind. And for me, that is the beautiful part of what they're doing. But over to you. Please share with me your thoughts by emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes, or pop by my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. I suspect you've got a lot to think and talk about after that one, so I'll sit here waiting patiently for your emails, and I'll join the rest of you here, same time, same place tomorrow. So thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.